Alright now, family, pull up close because what I'm about to walk you through is one of the wildest 24 hours the Blueface, Chrisean, and Nevaeh triangle has ever coughed up. And trust me, we have seen some rounds. Blueface and Nevaeh threw a baby shower today. A whole baby shower. Balloons, catering, cameras, matching fits, the whole production. And while Nevaeh was smiling for the pictures and playing the role of the glowing mommy-to-be, guess whose knuckles were banging against the front door of Blueface's house? Chrisean rock. Not texting, not subtweeting, not shading from a kickstream. Chrisean rock physically pulled up to Blueface's residence like the mailman owed her rent, and the whole scene got caught on camera. So before you scroll past this one, let me tell you right now, this is not another recycled Blueface drama clip. This is the moment the entire triangle cracked wide open, and by the time we get to the end, you will understand exactly why Nevaeh should have never sent that invite, why Blueface engineered the chaos on purpose, and why Chrisean is playing a game nobody else in that house is smart enough to see coming. Peep this real quick, because if you have been following the timeline, you already know the setup. Chrisean was doing well. She was in her church era. She was pulling back from the noise. Little Kashan Junior was thriving. Blueface was posted up with Nevaeh, playing the expectant daddy role for the cameras. And for a brief, shimmering second, it looked like the messiest triangle in modern hip-hop had finally cooled down. Then Blueface did what Blueface always does. He picked up the phone. He started sliding back into Chrisean's world. He started showing up at the games with her and Junior. He started letting the internet see him hovering, laughing, touching her arm, doing that little slow-turn head tilt he does when he wants the algorithm to notice. And Chrisean, being Chrisean, folded. She folded fast. She folded loudly. And now, on the same weekend Nevaeh is trying to celebrate her unborn child. Chrisean is at the door screaming for Blueface to open up, and Blueface is stalling like a man who set his own house on fire just to see who runs out first. Now, for anybody just tuning into this saga, let me lay the foundation real quick, because context is everything here. Blueface and Chrisean have been locked in this orbit for years. Reality shows, public fights, tattoos, breakups, makeups, arrests, livestream meltdowns, the whole catalog. They gave the internet a baby, Kashan Junior, and then they gave the internet a breakup, and then they gave the internet about 14 different versions of getting back together and falling apart again. Every single time Chrisean tries to walk away, Blueface finds the exact thread to pull to unravel her whole exit strategy. And every single time Blueface tries to build something new with somebody else, Chrisean materializes at the exact moment the new chapter is supposed to launch. That is not a coincidence pattern. That is a system. These two have been running this system on each other for so long that at this point the system runs itself, and everybody who steps into the middle of it, Jaden before, Nevaeh now, ends up as collateral damage in a war that started long before they arrived. So check it. Chrisean did not just show up. Chrisean showed up with intent. She had already dropped Junior off, according to the footage, and she knocked on that door with the calm confidence of a woman who knows the man inside cannot resist opening it. And you can hear it in the audio. You can hear Blueface trying to gaslight the room, trying to tell whoever was inside that it was the mailman. The mailman. On a Saturday, during a baby shower. Come on. Nobody in that house believed him for a second, and Chrisean sure did not believe him, because Chrisean is the one at the door, and Chrisean knows exactly what Blueface sounds like when he is lying through a locked door. She kept knocking. She kept calling. She kept demanding entry to a house where his current pregnant partner was preparing to celebrate the child they made together. And Blueface, instead of walking outside and handling it like a grown man, whispered sweet nothings back to whoever was standing next to him. That is not a slip. That is a confession dressed up as a whisper. Just remember, this is a man who has publicly claimed he was done with Chrisean. This is a man who let Nevaeh move into a whole new chapter of his public image. This is a man who put a whole engagement-adjacent narrative into the world and let Nevaeh believe she was the one holding the crown. And now, on the biggest emotional day of her pregnancy, Chrisean shows up unannounced. Blueface stalls, and the door does not open until Chrisean gets loud enough to embarrass everyone inside. That is not coincidence. That is choreography. Blueface knew what he was doing. Blueface always knows what he is doing. Blueface engineered this exact collision because the man cannot function without two women fighting over the same doorknob. And let me zoom out for a second, because this is not the first time Blueface has run this exact play. Remember how the Jaden era ended? Same blueprint. Public commitment energy, private chaos, a third party always hovering at the edges, and Blueface standing in the middle acting like he is the victim of circumstances he personally manufactured. Jaden got out. Jaden, to her credit, does her own thing now. Keeps it cute, keeps it moving, and stays out of the blast radius. Jaden is the only one who read the manual and followed the exit instructions. Nevaeh, on the other hand, walked into the same house, sat on the same couch, and acted surprised when the same trap door opened under her. The signs were not hidden. The signs were on billboards. Nevaeh just decided the billboards did not apply to her. And that is the exact miscalculation every woman in Blueface history has made right before the cameras caught them crying. And let us not skip over how we even got to this version of the story, because the road here matters. Chrisean gave the internet one of the most chaotic reality TV runs of the modern era, and then Chrisean did something nobody predicted. Chrisean got quiet. Chrisean got saved. Chrisean started posting scriptures, started showing up to service, started talking about purpose and peace, and raising Kashan Junior away from the noise. And for a while it held. The lives got calmer. The posts got softer. The energy around Chrisean shifted from disaster watch to something that almost looked like growth. And that is exactly why this weekend stings so much for the people who were rooting for her. Because everybody saw the rebuild. Everybody watched Chrisean stack quiet win after quiet win. And then one phone call from Blueface, 1 week of attention, one string of game day appearances, and the whole rebuilt foundation got traded in for a front door confrontation at another woman's baby shower. That is the part that should genuinely worry anybody who cares about Chrisean beyond the entertainment value, because relapses like this do not stay contained. They spread. And the version of Chrisean that bangs on doors is the version of Chrisean that ends up in headlines for all the wrong reasons. Now here is where it starts to get twisted, because Nevaeh is not the innocent lamb some of y'all want to paint her as. Nevaeh knew. Nevaeh has known. Nevaeh has been watching Blueface parade around with Chrisean and Kashan Junior at basketball games and public events for weeks, and Nevaeh did what she always does. She smiled through it, posted a soft-lit selfie, and pretended she was regulating the situation. She was not regulating anything. She was auditioning. Nevaeh has been auditioning for the role of the chosen one since the day she stepped into Blueface orbit, and every time Chrisean pulls up, Nevaeh gets another reminder that the role is not casting. Blueface is not choosing. Blueface is collecting. And Nevaeh, bless her, keeps standing in line thinking her turn is coming. And let me be fair to Nevaeh for one paragraph, because fairness matters even in the mess. Nevaeh is pregnant. Nevaeh is hormonal, emotional, and carrying a whole child while the father of that child plays musical chairs with his ex on the public timeline. Nevaeh has been doing everything she knows how to do. The soft launches, the matching photos, the prayers, the rituals, the positive energy posts, the little spiritual routines she swears by to lock her position in. Nevaeh has been manifesting, praying, posting, and pretending, and none of it, not one single piece of it, is working. Because energy cannot compete with history. Rituals cannot compete with a soul tie. And every soft-lit affirmation Nevaeh posts gets answered by the universe with another clip of Blueface sitting courtside next to Chrisean, smiling the exact smile that used to be aimed at Nevaeh. At some point, somebody who actually loves Nevaeh needs to sit her down and tell her the truth. You cannot manifest your way into first place with a man who never intended to have a first place. But listen, Chrisean did not fold back into Blueface because she is weak. Chrisean folded back because Chrisean is running a completely different playbook than everybody else in the room. Chrisean has a soul tie with Blueface that neither of them will ever fully sever, and Chrisean knows it, and Chrisean uses it. Every time Nevaeh gets comfortable, Chrisean pulls up. Every time Nevaeh posts something soft and glowy, Chrisean drops a hint that Blueface was just at her house. Every time Nevaeh throws a baby shower, Chrisean shows up at the front door. That is not chaos. That is choreography from the other direction. Chrisean is the head bitch in charge in this triangle whether Nevaeh wants to accept it or not. And Blueface loves that Chrisean carries herself like she already owns the throne, because it validates the very worst parts of who Blueface is. So while Nevaeh was inside cutting cake and pretending everything was fine, Chrisean was outside making sure the entire internet knew who the real center of gravity in Blueface's life is. And you can call it messy, you can call it disrespectful, you can call it toxic, and it is all three, but you cannot call it accidental. Chrisean planned this. Chrisean waited for this exact day. Chrisean picked the baby shower on purpose because Chrisean understands that in this triangle, the loudest moment wins, and Chrisean has never lost a loud moment in her life. And while we are talking about things the timeline keeps dancing around, let me address the Kashan Junior conversation that everybody whispers about and nobody wants to say plainly. Yes, the internet has spent months comparing that baby's face to Ronnie. Yes, Junior favors Ronnie in ways that make people uncomfortable. And yes, Blueface knows every single rumor, every side-by-side photo, every comment section investigation, and Blueface still shows up for that child. Blueface still claims that child. Blueface still builds his schedule around time with Junior. Now you can read that two ways. Either Blueface genuinely believes that is his son and does not care what the internet says, or Blueface understands that access to Junior is the permanent key to access to Chrisean, and Blueface is not giving up that key for anything. Personally, I think it is both. I think Blueface loves that little boy, and I think Blueface loves what that little boy guarantees him. A lifetime pass into Chrisean's front door, no matter who else is pregnant, no matter who else is living in his house. Kashan Jr. is the one lock Nevaeh can never change, and deep down, Nevaeh knows it. And since we are being thorough, let me say the quiet part about Blueface's selection pattern out loud, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Blueface does not pick strong women. Blueface does not pick women with firm boundaries, independent money, and families who ask hard questions. Blueface picks women who are either chaotic enough to match his energy or hopeful enough to absorb it. Blueface picks women who will fight each other instead of fighting him. Because the day Blueface dates a woman who looks at the front door footage and says, "Absolutely not, I am gone," that is the day the whole content machine shuts down. A strong woman in that house would be a wall, and Blueface needs revolving doors. That is the entire architecture. Every woman in this triangle was selected for her willingness to tolerate what no woman should tolerate. And every public meltdown we watch is just the selection criteria playing out in real time. Now let me pull you into something even messier, because Nevaeh has not been walking around this situation like some quiet, dignified, expectant mother. Nevaeh has been running her mouth too. Nevaeh has been calling Chrisean a baby disabler, which, let me pause right there, is one of the most vile things you can say about any woman, and it is 100 times worse coming from a woman who is herself pregnant. That comment did not just land in Chrisean's ear. That comment landed in Blueface's ear. That comment landed in Kashan's ear. And now Nevaeh is about to learn what happens when you insult a child in a triangle where the other woman already has the man's ear and the man's history and the man's soul tie. Nevaeh forgot that Blueface does not tolerate slander against Kashan Jr. Blueface has accepted Kashan Jr. as his son. Blueface likes being around Kashan Jr. Blueface watches that little boy grow up, and the moment Blueface heard what Nevaeh said, something in the temperature of that house shifted permanently. That is why Blueface has been so cold to Nevaeh lately. That is why Blueface has been late to her events. That is why Blueface has been engineering these Chrisean run-ins. Blueface is punishing Nevaeh. Blueface is putting Nevaeh through the emotional gauntlet on purpose because Nevaeh crossed a line, and Blueface, narcissist that he is, cannot let a line crossing go unpunished. Nevaeh thought she was being cute. Nevaeh thought calling Chrisean names would elevate her own position. Instead, Nevaeh handed Blueface and Chrisean the exact reason they needed to team up against her. And now Nevaeh is out here throwing a baby shower for a man who left her alone at her own front door while another woman screamed his name from the porch. Blueface is playing a dangerous, dangerous game. And I am going to say what nobody else on this timeline wants to say. Blueface is not just juggling women. Blueface is engineering emotional collisions on purpose because that is the only thing that makes Blueface feel powerful anymore. Blueface's career is not what it used to be. Blueface music is not moving the way it used to move. The only reason Blueface's name keeps trending is because Blueface keeps orchestrating these public relationship implosions and every single one of them ends with a different woman crying on live. Chrisean cried. Jaden cried. Nevaeh has cried. And the pattern is not going to stop until somebody in that orbit finally chooses themselves over Blueface. But here is the part that makes my chest tight. Chrisean is not going to be the one who chooses herself. Chrisean already tried. Chrisean was doing the work. Chrisean was in church. Chrisean was raising Kashan Junior. Chrisean was quiet. Chrisean was healing. And then Blueface came sniffing back around, and Chrisean folded like a Sunday paper. Because that is what soul ties do to people who have not fully done the work. Soul ties override logic. Soul ties override self-respect. Soul ties override every single boundary you swore you would defend the next time. And Chrisean, for all her toughness and all her chaos and all her audacity, has never been able to sever the one that ties her to Blueface. That is the tragedy under the theater. That is the sadness under the shouting. Chrisean is not messy for sport. Chrisean is messy because she is hurting, and Blueface knows exactly which button to press to keep her hurting so he can keep her within arm's reach. Now let me talk about Kashan Jr. for a second, because Kashan Jr. is somehow the most talked about baby in this whole triangle, and Kashan Jr. has done absolutely nothing wrong. Kashan Jr. did not ask to be born into this. Kashan Jr. did not ask to be the subject of paternity rumors. Kashan Jr. did not ask for the internet to sit there comparing his face to Ronnie's face and to Blueface's face like he is a science experiment. And yet every time the triangle heats up, Kashan Jr.'s name gets dragged into the middle of it. Blueface treats Kashan Jr. like a son. Blueface shows up for Kashan Jr. Blueface likes being around Kashan Jr. And say what you want about Blueface as a partner. Blueface has been remarkably consistent about that specific piece of the puzzle. But now Nevaeh has weaponized Kashan Jr.'s existence to take shots at Chrisean, and Chrisean, who will burn a whole city down over her son, is not going to let that slide. Nevaeh does not understand the fire she just lit. And while we are on Kashan Jr., let me talk directly to the internet detectives for a second, because y'all are part of this story too. The side-by-side photos. The face comparisons. The Ronnie discourse every single time Junior posts a new video. I have covered the resemblance conversation before and I am not relitigating it here, but I will say this. Every time the timeline drags that baby's features into the drama, Kashan Jr. pays the price for an argument between adults he will one day read about himself. And Blueface, whatever his private thoughts, has made his public position clear. That is his son. Full stop. He claims Junior. He shows up for Junior. And anybody who comes for Junior gets the coldest version of Blueface there is. Nevaeh found that out the hard way. And the internet should take the same lesson, because there is a difference between covering the triangle and aiming it at a toddler. See, there is a reason Chrisean and her people move the way they move. Chrisean does not fight fair. Chrisean does not send warning shots. Chrisean does not do the polite exchange of subliminals. When Chrisean is triggered, Chrisean shows up. Chrisean pulls up. Chrisean bangs on doors. And now that Nevaeh has run her mouth about Chrisean's child, every single interaction going forward is going to be lived out at that intensity. Nevaeh is not ready for this. Nevaeh has never been ready for this. Nevaeh signed up thinking she was going to be a rapper's wife. Nevaeh did not sign up to be in a war of attrition against a woman who has proven, on multiple public occasions, that she has no off switch. Drop your verdict in the comments right now, because I want to hear it. Do you think Chrisean was justified in pulling up to that baby shower? Do you think Blueface engineered the whole collision? Do you think Nevaeh is playing a role she is not equipped to play? Or do you think all three of them are exactly where they want to be and this is nothing but content for their own bottom lines? Because let me tell you, I have thought about that angle a lot, and I do not think it is entirely off the table. All three of these people have livelihoods that depend on the internet caring about their names. Blueface knows his engagement spikes every time Chrisean pulls up. Chrisean knows her kick streams pop off every time she screams Blueface's name. Nevaeh knows her follower count climbed the second she got publicly associated with Blueface. So maybe none of this is quite as accidental as the tears suggest. Maybe some of this is theater. Maybe some of this is business. And maybe the person who is losing the most in this whole triangle is not any of the three adults. It is the babies who are going to grow up watching this footage one day. Now let me pivot to Nevaeh's baby shower itself for a second, because the details matter. Blueface paid for that shower. Blueface arranged the venue. Blueface set up the whole production. And Blueface showed up late. Very late. Late enough that Chrisean had the time to pull up, knock on the door, get into it with him at the house, and still put Blueface behind schedule for the event he himself financed. That is not a scheduling accident. That is a message. Blueface was telling Nevaeh, in the loudest non-verbal language available, that Chrisean's front door tantrum was more important than Nevaeh's celebration. And Nevaeh, instead of reading the message, stood in the middle of her decorated venue calling it her day like the tardiness was not the loudest sentence in the room. Nevaeh, please. Blueface did not care about your day. Blueface cared about being seen caring about your day, which is a different thing entirely. And by the time he actually walked through those doors, everybody in the building already knew where his real attention had been. And here is the thing about Blueface that people keep missing. Blueface likes it this way. Blueface likes the chaos. Blueface likes the confusion. Blueface likes the fact that 3 grown women are all trying to figure out where they rank in a hierarchy Blueface refuses to publicly define. Because as long as the ranking is undefined, Blueface holds all the power. The moment Blueface publicly picks one, the other 2 walk. And Blueface cannot afford to lose 2/3 of his current relevance machine. So Blueface will keep the ranking blurry forever if we let him. Blueface will let Chrisean scream at doors. Blueface will let Nevaeh cry into cameras. Blueface will let Jaden drop the occasional cryptic post. Blueface will feed all 3 of them just enough hope to keep them within reach, and all 3 of them will keep feeding him just enough attention to keep his brand alive. It is a symbiotic disaster, and every single person involved is complicit. But let me be very clear about one thing. Chrisean and Jonathan together are the most dangerous unit in this whole equation. And if I were Nevaeh, I would have had my bags packed the second I heard those 2 names in the same sentence. Chrisean and Jonathan have a bond that runs deeper than any relationship in that circle. Chrisean and Jonathan have history. Chrisean and Jonathan have loyalty. Chrisean and Jonathan have coordination. And now that Nevaeh has publicly disrespected Chrisean's child, Chrisean and Jonathan are absolutely going to move as a unit, and Nevaeh has 0 comparable backup. Nevaeh's family is not in the room. Nevaeh's friends are largely internet acquaintances. Nevaeh is alone in Blueface ecosystem, and Blueface is not a man you want to be alone around when you have made an enemy of the 2 people he trusts most. I want Nevaeh to hear something, because I do not think Nevaeh is going to hear it from anybody else in her circle. Nevaeh, you are not going to regulate Blueface. You are not going to outlove Chrisean. You are not going to outshine Jaden. You are not going to outplan Jonathan. You are not going to outperform the soul tie between Blueface and Chrisean. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start protecting yourself and that baby. When you have that child, keep that child at your house. Do not send that baby to Blueface's house while Chrisean is anywhere in the picture. Do not let Blueface parade that baby the way he parades Kashan Junior. Do not let Blueface use your child as another chess piece in this triangle. Because that is exactly what he is going to do. Blueface has already telegraphed the play. Blueface has shown you the pattern. Blueface has literally, on the day of your baby's shower, prioritized another woman's front door tantrum over your celebration. What more evidence do you need? And let me say something to Chrisean too, because Chrisean is going to feel triumphant after today. Chrisean is going to feel like she won. Chrisean is going to log on to Kick tonight and act like she just took over the whole triangle. But Chrisean, sis, you did not win anything. You went back to a man who was publicly setting up a family with another woman. You interrupted a pregnancy celebration to prove you still had access to a door key. You put yourself back in the middle of a storm you had already climbed out of. That is not a win. That is a relapse. And Kashan Junior deserves a mama who is not relapsing every time Blueface picks up the phone. But we are not going to get that. We are not going to get the healthy version of this triangle. We are going to get the next chapter, and the next chapter is already loading. Because right now, as we are talking, Nevaeh is sitting somewhere replaying that front door footage. Chrisean is somewhere feeling victorious. Jonathan is somewhere laughing. Blueface is somewhere counting the engagement metrics. And the algorithm, the merciless, indifferent algorithm, is rewarding every single one of them for the emotional carnage they just produced. That is the machine we all live inside now, whether we like it or not. Now let me get back to the specifics of what happened at that door, because I have watched the footage multiple times, and there are 3 details nobody is talking about. Detail number 1, Blueface's voice when he tries to tell the person inside that Chrisean is the mailman. That voice is not surprise. That voice is not fear. That voice is theater. Blueface knew Chrisean was coming. Blueface probably invited her to come, in whatever coded way Blueface communicates with Chrisean when Nevaeh is not looking. Detail number 2, the whispered I love you exchange that got caught on the audio right after the mailman lie. That is not a stray affection. That is a soul tie signal. That is Blueface confirming to Chrisean that even in the middle of the biggest day of another woman's pregnancy, Chrisean still holds the emotional priority position. Detail number 3, Chrisean's tone when she says she pulled up alone. That was pride. That was ownership. That was Chrisean saying, in her own way, that she did not need reinforcements to come collect what she considers hers. And let us talk about the aftermath, because the aftermath is where the truth always leaks out. Within hours of the footage spreading, the timeline split into camps. Team Chrisean declared the pull-up a legendary power move. Team Nevaeh called it the lowest form of desperation. And the neutrals, the biggest camp of all, just asked the obvious question. Why was Blueface's first instinct to lie about the mailman instead of simply opening the door and handling his business? Because that lie is the whole story in miniature. Blueface did not protect Nevaeh's day. Blueface did not confront Chrisean directly. Blueface did what Blueface does. Blueface lied to everyone in the building, bought himself 90 seconds of confusion, and let the women absorb all the damage while he stood in the middle of it untouched. Watch the pattern, not the players. The players change. Jaden left. Nevaeh arrived. Chrisean orbits. But the man at the center runs the exact same play every single season. And the play only works because a new audience member keeps volunteering to learn the ending the hard way. Every stumble teaches something. And what this stumble is teaching everybody watching is that the Blueface, Chrisean, Nevaeh triangle is not a love story. It is not a redemption arc. It is not even a cautionary tale anymore. It is a business. It is a content engine. It is a mutually assured destruction pact between 3 adults who have all figured out that their financial futures are welded to the internet's appetite for their pain. And the more we click, the more we watch, the more we comment, the more we share, the more we fund the very machine we say we are tired of. But we are going to keep watching. I am going to keep covering it. You are going to keep clicking. And Blueface, Chrisean, and Nevaeh are going to keep serving up scenes designed exactly to keep this cycle spinning. So we might as well be smart about it. We might as well name what we are seeing. We might as well call out the choreography while we are enjoying the show. Because if we pretend this is all spontaneous, we let Blueface off the hook for the deliberate emotional damage he keeps engineering. And Blueface deserves to be held to account for it. Even in a gossip cycle, even in a triangle he has convinced everyone is just messy love. Chrisean deserves better than the version of herself she becomes when Blueface calls. Nevaeh deserves better than the version of the relationship she is being sold. Kashan Junior deserves better than being turned into a talking point every time the triangle explodes. And the baby Nevaeh is carrying deserves a mother who understands, before that child is even born, that the man she chose is not going to change just because a baby is on the way. Babies do not fix men. Baby showers do not fix relationships. And front door confrontations do not fix triangles. They just add another chapter to a story that has been begging to end for years. So here is where I am landing today. I think Blueface engineered the collision. I think Chrisean walked into it fully aware of the choreography. I think Nevaeh is being punished for the baby disabler comment and does not fully realize it yet. I think Jonathan is going to make a move in the next few weeks that puts Nevaeh on the defensive in a way she is not prepared for. And I think Kashan Junior is somehow, against all odds, the healthiest emotional presence in the entire cast, and every adult in that orbit should be taking notes from a toddler. So what comes next? Let me give you the prediction board, because this is the part where the smart viewers take notes. Prediction 1. Nevaeh goes live within days, cries, and either defends Blueface or announces a break, and either version ends with her back at that house within a month. Prediction 2. Chrisean addresses the pull-up on stream, claims she was disrespected first, and drops at least one new detail that reframes the entire weekend. Prediction 3. Blueface says nothing of substance, posts something deliberately vague, and lets both women fight over the interpretation. And Prediction 4. The one I am most confident about. Kashan Junior will appear in exactly one wholesome-looking post designed to calm the timeline. And it will work, because it always works. Screenshot this paragraph. Check it against the next 2 weeks. The script writes itself because the people in it refuse to write anything new. The next flare-up is not a question of if. It is a question of when. And when it happens, because it is going to happen, probably before the week is out, remember what we said today. Remember that Blueface loves the chaos. Remember that Chrisean weaponizes the soul tie. Remember that Nevaeh keeps auditioning for a role that is not casting. And remember that the algorithm is the fourth character in this triangle, and the algorithm never sleeps. I want to hear from you. Was Chrisean wrong for pulling up on baby shower day? Was Nevaeh wrong for what she said about Kashan Jr.? Was Blueface wrong for orchestrating the collision? Was Jonathan right to start moving pieces on the board? Drop your verdict, drop your predictions, drop your receipts. And if you think I am reading the tea leaves right, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and stay locked in because the next installment of this triangle is already loading, and I promise you I am going to be the first one to break it down when it drops. Because here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. As long as Blueface keeps engineering these collisions, as long as Chrisean keeps folding, as long as Nevaeh keeps auditioning, and as long as the internet keeps rewarding all three of them for the damage, the triangle is not ending. Not this year. Not next year. Not until somebody in that orbit finally chooses peace over performance. And based on what we watched today, peace is not on the menu. Stay tuned, stay wise, and catch me next time because trust me, we are barely getting started with this one, and the next chapter is already knocking on the door. And before I let y'all go, I need to say one more thing to the women watching this who see themselves somewhere in this story, because I know you are out there. Maybe your Blueface is not a rapper. Maybe your Blueface is the man down the street who keeps 2 phones, the man who lies about the mailman, the man who lets you plan the shower while somebody else bangs on his door. The scale is different, but the blueprint is identical, and the lesson transfers 100%. A man who enjoys the collision will never prevent the collision. A man who lies to manage the room instead of leading the room is telling you exactly who he is. And a door that only opens when the other woman gets loud enough was never your door to begin with. Nevaeh is learning that lesson on camera, in front of millions, during what should have been the softest season of her life. Learn it from her tuition instead of paying it yourself. So that is where everything stands tonight. The shower happened. The door got banged on. The mailman lie got told. The whisper got caught on the audio. Nevaeh is somewhere doing the math she should have done months ago. Chrisean is somewhere feeling like the throne was never really surrendered, and Blueface is somewhere watching every clip, every comment, every reaction video, smiling at a storm he built with his own 2 hands. The triangle holds because every corner of it gets paid in attention, and attention is the one currency none of them can quit. The baby will arrive soon, and when that baby arrives, this story does not get simpler. It gets louder, because then there will be 2 children inside this machine, 2 sets of loyalties, 2 mothers orbiting one man who has never once shown he intends to land anywhere. I told you at the top that by the end of this video you would understand why Nevaeh should never have sent that invite, why Blueface engineered the chaos, and why Chrisean is playing a deeper game than anyone in that house. Now you have all 3. The invite was Nevaeh announcing a coronation that was never scheduled. The chaos was Blueface reminding every woman in his orbit that the crown stays in his hand. And the deeper game is Chrisean understanding that she never needed the crown. She just needs the key, and Kashan Jr. is a key that never stops working. 3 players, 3 strategies, 1 machine, and the next chapter already knocking. Stay tuned, stay wise, and I will see you the second the next door swings open.